10 years, an entire decade, just gone. He looked at me, his eyes so cold, like a stranger's, and said, "Those vows we made, they meant nothing, nothing at all." And just like that, the life I knew, the love I held onto so tight, it all shattered. All because of one night, a night I thought was buried so deep it could never touch us. It's strange, isn't it? How you can look back at your life, at this beautiful thing you've built with someone, and see the exact moment a tiny, forgotten thread started to unravel it all. For 10 years, Michael and I weren't just married. We were a team. We built a home, not just with wood and nails, but with shared dreams. So much laughter, and that quiet comfort you feel when you know someone truly sees you, truly loves you. We met in our early 20s. It was a bit of a whirlwind at first, but it quickly grew into something real, something strong. Our wedding wasn't some huge, fancy affair, but it was perfect for us. Surrounded by friends and family, brimming with hope and promises we really, truly believed would last forever. He was my rock. In so many ways, he still is. That steady hand, the calm voice when things got chaotic. We got through job losses, family sicknesses, all those little daily frictions that can test any couple. And through it all, I honestly thought our foundation was solid rock. We had our routines, our inside jokes, that way of knowing what the other was thinking with just a look. We'd talk about growing old together, about the kids we hoped to have, all the adventures we still had planned. Our lives had this beautiful, comfortable rhythm. We just assumed it would last forever, you know? I never, ever imagined that a ghost from my past, a secret I'd carried silently for so long, could just rise up and destroy everything. Looking back, maybe I was naive. Maybe I didn't understand how heavy secrets really are, how they can just sit there in the dark, waiting for a crack to seep through. The life we had, it was good, it was real, or at least I thought it was. I thought we were real. Before I was Michael's wife, before we built that whole life together, I was just Sarah. A bride-to-be, so excited but also a little terrified about the massive step I was about to take. My friends, bless them, in their wisdom and wanting to give me a proper send-off, planned a bachelorette party. It was supposed to be a weekend of harmless fun, you know? One last hurrah. We went to a city a few hours away, booked a flashy hotel, and the theme was basically, well, excess. There was so much pressure, even then, for these parties to be wild, memorable, something you'd whisper about for years. I remember feeling a bit overwhelmed by it all. I was caught between wanting to be a good sport for my friends and this quiet part of me that was already, heart and soul, committed to Michael. The air was electric, though, fueled by cheap champagne and that giddy excitement for the wedding. We were young, maybe a bit reckless, and the lines between letting loose and making mistakes felt a lot blurrier than they do now. I'm not trying to make excuses for what happened. I own my choices, I do. But it's important, for me anyway, to remember how things were. I was younger, not as sure of myself, and definitely more easily swayed by what everyone else was doing than I like to admit now. The night itself? It's a bit of a blur in some parts, just a chaotic mix of loud music, dancing, and way too many cocktails. There was this feeling of being invincible, like anything that happened that weekend didn't really count, like it was all in this separate little bubble outside of real life. A dangerous way to think, I know that now, a catastrophically dangerous one. The way he found out, it wasn't dramatic like in the movies. No anonymous letter, no tearful confession from a guilt-ridden friend. It was quiet, almost ordinary, which somehow made it even worse. We were clearing out the attic, a job we'd been putting off for ages. You know, boxes of old memories, photo albums, stuff we hadn't looked at in years. Michael pulled out an old laptop of mine, one I hadn't touched since before we were married. He just asked if there was anything on it worth saving before we got rid of it. I froze. Just for a split second, my mind raced. I mumbled something like, "Oh, it's probably just old college papers," and said he could just wipe it. But Michael, he's always so thorough. He said he'd just quickly check for photos we might have forgotten. My heart started pounding. I should have said something right then, insisted I'd do it myself, made up some excuse. But I just stood there, frozen by a fear I hadn't let myself feel for a decade. A little while later, he called me downstairs. His voice was flat. None of its usual warmth. I knew even before I saw his face that something was terribly wrong. He was sitting at the kitchen table, the old laptop open. And on the screen was a folder. And in that folder, pictures. Pictures from that Bachelorette weekend. Pictures I thought were long gone, deleted, or at least buried on a dead computer that would never start up again. And among them, there it was, the one that told a story I'd never, ever wanted him to know. It wasn't just a silly, drunken photo. It was compromising. It showed me in a situation with someone who wasn't him that crossed lines. Lines I'd convinced myself at the time were fuzzy, but seeing it there, in our kitchen, 10 years later, they were crystal clear. There was no defending it. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse me. Not right away. He just looked at me, his eyes filled with this confusion, this dawning horror that cut me deeper than any anger ever could have. "What is this, Sarah?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. And in that moment, the dam of 10 years of secrecy, of trying so hard to forget, it just broke. The words just poured out of me, a mess of shame, fear, and this desperate, pathetic attempt to explain that sounded hollow even to my own ears. I told him everything about that night. The crazy amount of drinking, the dares, feeling like I was just swept along by everyone else. I tried to explain that it was a stupid, regrettable mistake, something that happened in a haze and meant absolutely nothing. I kept stressing that it was before we were married, before our vows, as if that somehow softened the blow. He just listened, his face getting harder with every word. That first shock turned into this deep, profound sense of betrayal. Then came the questions, his voice getting tighter, sharper. Who was it? Did I ever see them again? And the big one. Why, for 10 whole years, had I never said a word? That, I think, was the heart of his pain. Not just the act itself, which was bad enough, but the decade of lying about it. The fact that I'd stood next to him, built a life with him, all while hiding this. He said he felt like our entire marriage was a lie, that he was looking at me, but he didn't even know who I was anymore. He asked how many other secrets I was keeping, if any part of our relationship had ever been real. The pain in his eyes, it was unbearable. I tried to tell him it was real, that my love for him was real, that the secret was a mistake made by a different person, a younger, stupider version of me. I told him I buried it because I was so ashamed and terrified of losing him, and then, over time, it just got easier to pretend it never happened. But my explanations just sounded like excuses. To him, it was a fundamental break, a total shattering of trust. He said, "You let me believe in a version of us, of you, that wasn't even true. You watched me love you, trust you completely, all while knowing this." The arguments that followed over the next few days were agonizing. They weren't mostly screaming matches. They were worse. They were filled with his quiet, piercing sorrow and my desperate, failing attempts to somehow bridge this huge canyon that had just ripped open between us. I told him it was a one-time thing, that it didn't define me or my love for him. I begged him to see that the 10 years we'd shared, all the good years, the happy memories, they had to count for more than this one mistake from so long ago. I suggested counseling, anything to help us get through it. But he was just retreating, further and further away, into this place of hurt I couldn't seem to reach. He kept coming back to it. For 10 years, I had made a choice, every single day, to keep this from him. He said he felt like he'd married a stranger. The weight of what I'd done, not just the act itself, but keeping quiet for so long, it just crushed me. He was right. I'd built our marriage on a lie of omission, and now the missing piece had shown up and was about to bring the whole thing crashing down. He started sleeping in the guest room. The silence in the house was awful, so heavy and suffocating. About a week after he found out, a week of strained conversations, sleepless nights, and an atmosphere so thick with unspoken pain you could barely breathe, he sat me down again. His eyes were red-rimmed, his face just etched with this weariness that seemed to have aged him years in just a few days. I had this tiny, desperate flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, he was ready to talk about a way forward, about trying to heal. I was so wrong. He told me he'd done a lot of thinking, that he'd replayed our entire relationship in his head, looking for signs, for clues he might have missed. He said the image of that photo, and knowing I'd deceived him, was something he couldn't unsee, couldn't unknow. He talked about trust being the bedrock of a marriage, and how, in his eyes, I'd systematically smashed it to bits with every day I stayed silent. And then he said the words that just stopped my world. "I want a divorce, Sarah." I think I actually stopped breathing. The room just tilted. I stared at him, hoping, praying this was some horrible mistake, a misunderstanding. But the look in his eyes, it was absolute. I started to plead, to bargain. I told him we could get through this, that people make mistakes, that love is about forgiveness. I reminded him of everything we'd built, everything we'd shared. He just shook his head, this look of such profound sadness on his face. "Don't you understand?" he said, his voice cracking. "It's not just about what happened at the party. It's about the 10 years you lied to me. Every anniversary, every I love you, every moment we shared. It's all tainted now. You made vows to me, Sarah, honesty, fidelity, trust, and this secret, this lie you carried, it makes a mockery of all of it. Those vows we made? They meant nothing to you then, and because of that, they mean nothing to me now." His words hit me like actual blows. Our vows meant nothing. It was the cruelest, most devastating thing he could have said about our life together. He truly believed that what I did back then, and my silence since, just wiped out everything we had ever been. He said he couldn't spend the rest of his life wondering what else I might be hiding, or looking at me and seeing that betrayal. He said he needed to walk away to keep his own sanity, his own sense of who he was. He was shattered, and by shattering him, I'd shattered myself and us. The days since he said that, they've been a blur of disbelief, and this pain so deep it's like a constant ache in my chest. He meant it. He's contacted a lawyer. He's started looking for an apartment. The word divorce, which used to be this abstract thing that happened to other people, is now the stark, cold reality of my future. We're still in the same house for now, but we're like strangers. The silence is heavier than ever, only broken by short, necessary exchanges about logistics. The warmth is gone. The laughter is gone. The future we planned together? Gone. I walk through the rooms of our home, a home we chose together, painted together, filled with our memories. And it feels like a museum of a life that doesn't exist anymore. I've tried talking to him more, begging him to reconsider, to at least try therapy before we make such a final decision. Sometimes I see a flicker of the man I married, a hint of the pain he's trying to hide, but then the walls go right back up. He says his trust is just gone, irrevocably broken. He can't see a way back. He believes that what I did, especially hiding it for so long, really does show my character. My friends are divided. Some say he's overreacting. That one mistake made a decade ago, before we were even married, shouldn't destroy a 10-year marriage. Others get his side, focusing on the breach of trust. I'm bombarded with advice, with opinions, But none of it changes how Michael feels. He feels betrayed, deeply and fundamentally, and honestly, in my shame and regret, I can't truly blame him for feeling that way. I swing between this desperate hope that he'll change his mind and a crushing despair that this is really it, the end of us. I feel this immense guilt, not just for what I did that night, but for the years of silence that made that one mistake into something monstrous. I'm terrified of losing him, of losing the life we built, of facing a future I never ever imagined. I spend so much time replaying everything in my head. The Bachelorette party, the decision to keep it secret, every anniversary, every loving moment we shared, it all feels shadowed now by this unearthed truth. Did I ever really think it would stay buried forever? Or did I just push it down so deep I managed to fool even myself for a while? The emotional turmoil is exhausting. There's just so much guilt, shame, regret, and this overwhelming sadness. I know that healing, if it's even possible for us, would take a massive effort from both of us. It would mean open communication and a real willingness to try and rebuild something new from all this wreckage. But right now, he's not willing. He's too hurt, and I have to respect that, as painful as it is. The idea of forgiveness feels miles away, like a distant shore I can't even see from here. This whole situation, this crisis, it has stripped everything bare. It's forced me to look at the worst parts of myself, the choices I made, and their devastating consequences. I have no idea what the future holds. Will he actually go through with the divorce? Is there any tiny chance for us to reconnect down the line after some time and space, maybe offer a different perspective? Or is this truly the end of our story? It's such a harsh lesson in how destructive secrets can be, and just how fragile trust really is. What happened that night 10 years ago was a betrayal of my own values, and ultimately, a betrayal of the man I love. My silence just magnified that betrayal tenfold.